It was the night of May 13, 2008, a very quiet, very dark night, the kind of night where even the wind seems to hold its breath. Somewhere in rural Minnesota in the United States, a phone rang. It rang in the middle of that silence. A mother picked it up. Her voice was soft, tired, but full of love. On the other end was her 19-year-old son. He sounded scared. He sounded lost. He said, "Mom, I think I'm in trouble." That call would be the last time anyone ever heard Brandon Swanson's voice. Brandon Swanson was not a troubled boy. He was not wild. He was not reckless. He was just a regular teenager. He lived in a small town called Marshall. It sits in the flat, wide open land of western Minnesota. Fields stretch for miles there, empty roads, big sky, few people. Brandon went to college nearby. He studied business. He worked part-time at a grocery store. He liked fishing. He liked being outside. He loved his dog. He was quiet but kind. His parents, Annette and Brian, adored him. They were proud of him. He was their only child, their whole world. Brandon was responsible. When he went out, he always told his parents where he was going. If he was late, he called. He never caused them worry until that night. May 13, 2008 started like any other spring evening. Brandon was with some friends. They were celebrating. Earlier that day, one of them had turned 21, the legal drinking age in America. So they went out. They went to a bar called the Corner Bar in Marshall. They had a few drinks, nothing too wild, just friends having fun. Around 1 a.m., Brandon decided it was time to go home. He lived just a few miles away. He got into his old green 1995 Pontiac Grand AM. He said goodbye to his friends. He drove off into the night, but Brandon didn't make it home. Less than a mile from the bar, his car slipped off the road. It slid into a muddy ditch. The car wasn't badly damaged. Brandon wasn't hurt, but he was stuck. He tried to push the car out. He didn't have a cell phone signal right there, so he walked. He walked to find help or to find a better spot to call. He didn't walk far, about a quarter of a mile. He found a place with signal. At 1:31 a.m., he called his parents. His mom, Annette, answered. "Hi, Mom," he said. "I had a little accident. I drove into a ditch. I'm okay, don't worry, but I need help getting the car out." Annette asked where he was. Brandon looked around. He saw a water tower in the distance. He thought it was the water tower in Lind, a small town about 12 miles south of Marshall. "I think I'm near Lind," he told her. "I see the water tower." Annette believed him. So did his dad, Brian, who was listening nearby. They knew Lind. They'd been there before. It made sense, so they told Brandon to stay put. They would come get him. They got dressed quickly. They left the house in their car. They headed south toward Lind. As they drove, they stayed on the phone with Brandon. The call never dropped. For almost 2 hours they talked. Brandon described what he saw, lights in the distance, a field, a road. He said he could see their car headlights. "I see your lights," he said at one point. "I think you're close." Brian drove faster. He kept turning, trying to get closer. But no matter how close they got, Brandon said they were still far. He kept saying, "You're going the wrong way. Turn around. Go back. I see your lights, but you're not coming toward me." Brian and Annette were confused. They were following his directions, but they never saw him, never saw his car, never saw his figure in the dark. It was like he was just out of reach, always a little farther, always just beyond the next curve. At one point, Brandon said, "There's a river here. I hear water. It sounds close." Annette's heart jumped. She knew there was a river near Lind, the Yellow Medicine River. It wasn't wide, but it had deep spots, and in May the water was still cold from winter, very cold. "Stay away from the water, Brandon," she said. "Just stay where you are. We'll find you." But Brandon kept moving. He thought he was helping. He thought if he walked toward them, they'd meet faster. He wasn't standing still. He was walking through the dark, through wet grass, past cornfields just starting to grow, toward lights he thought were his parents. The night air was chilly, around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to wear a jacket. Brandon only had a light shirt on. He wasn't dressed for walking outside for hours. His shoes were wet from the ditch. His feet were cold. He was tired. He was confused, and he was alone. His parents' voices on the phone were his only link to safety, but even that felt fragile. Because the more they talked, the more it became clear they were not in the same place. Brian drove past the Lind water tower. He circled it. He asked Brandon, "Do you see this big metal tower?" Brandon said yes. But the water tower Brandon saw was not the one in Lind. He was wrong. He was not in Lind at all. He was actually near a tiny place called Taunton. Taunton is only about 5 miles east of Marshall, much closer to home. But Taunton also has a water tower. And in the dark from a distance, one water tower looks just like another. Brandon had mixed them up. So while his parents drove south deeper into the countryside, Brandon was actually northeast of them. They were moving farther apart, not closer. Still, the phone call stayed connected. For 2 hours it never broke, until 3:30 a.m. That's when everything changed. Brandon suddenly sounded different. His voice was lower, slower, scared. "I think I hear water," he said again. "It's really close," then a splash, a gasp, then silence. Annette shouted his name. "Brandon, Brandon," no answer, just the sound of the wind, and then the call ended, total silence. His parents kept calling back over and over, but Brandon never answered again. Brian turned the car around immediately. He drove fast back toward Marshall. He called 911. He told the police what happened. "They need to search near Taunton," he said. "Not Lind, Taunton." Police were already searching near Lind. Now they had to shift. By dawn, dozens of officers were in the fields around Taunton. Dogs were brought in. Search teams combed every inch of land. They found Brandon's car still stuck in the ditch near Taunton, just like he said, but there was no sign of Brandon. They followed his likely path, from the car to the spot where he made the call to the area where the line went dead. That path led to the edge of a small creek, the west branch of the Yellow Medicine River. The creek wasn't wide, maybe 15 feet across, but parts of it were deep and the banks were muddy, very muddy, especially after spring rains. Searchers found footprints near the edge, small, shallow prints leading right to the water, but on the other side, nothing, no footprints coming out, no clothes, no phone, no Brandon. Days turned into weeks. Volunteers came from all over. They walked shoulder to shoulder through cornfields. They dragged the creek with hooks. They used sonar boats to scan the riverbed. Divers went underwater, searching in the thick mud and weeds. Nothing, not a belt, not a shoe, not even a thread from his shirt. It was as if Brandon had vanished into thin air or into the water. Why did Brandon think he was in Lind when he was really in Taunton? It's simple, really. Both towns have water towers. Both are visible from miles away. At night, with no street signs, with no buildings around, with only the stars above, how could a confused 19-year-old tell the difference? He saw a tower. He assumed it was the one he knew. He was wrong, and that mistake changed everything. His parents, acting on his words, went the wrong way, and Brandon, trying to meet them, walked toward danger he didn't see. What happened in those final seconds, no one knows for sure, but experts have theories. 1. Brandon heard the creek. He didn't realize how close he was. In the dark, the ground gave way. He fell in. The water was cold, near freezing. His body went into shock. He couldn't swim. He couldn't call out. The current pulled him under. His phone dropped into the mud. And that was it, too. He didn't fall in right away. He stepped into the mud near the bank. The mud was soft like quicksand. He sank. He struggled. But the more he moved, the deeper he went. He couldn't get out. He drowned in silence. 3. He didn't drown at all. Maybe he got out of the water, but he was soaked. He was tired. The night was cold. He sat down to rest and never woke up. Hypothermia, when your body gets too cold to work, can sneak up on you. You feel sleepy. You close your eyes and your heart just stops. All these theories are possible, but none can be proven because Brandon's body was never found. For Annette and Brian, the days after were like living in a nightmare. They waited by the phone, hoping it would ring. Hoping it was him saying, "Just kidding, Mom, I'm okay." But the phone never rang. They drove the roads themselves. They walked the fields. They called every hospital, every jail, every shelter. No one had seen him. They met with psychics. They followed strange tips. Someone said they saw him hitchhiking in Iowa. Another said he was working on a farm in Canada. All were lies or mistakes. The truth was simpler and more cruel. Brandon never left that night. He never made it home. Years passed. The case stayed open. Police never gave up, but leads dried up. The creek dried up in summer. They searched it again, still nothing. Brandon's friends grew up, they got married, had kids, but they never forgot him. His parents aged faster than they should have. Their eyes carry a quiet sadness. They keep his room exactly as it was, his clothes still in the closet, his fishing gear by the door. His dog, now old, still waits by the window, as if Brandon will walk in any minute. Every May 13, they light a candle. They play his favorite song. They tell stories about him so he won't be forgotten. Why does this case haunt so many people? Because it could have been anyone's son, anyone's brother, anyone's friend. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He had a small accident. He called for help. He trusted his parents to find him. They trusted him to stay safe. But the night was dark. The land was empty. And a simple mistake, a water tower in the wrong place, led to a tragedy no one saw coming. There was no villain, no evil person, just bad luck, just confusion, just silence, and that's what makes it so hard to accept. Imagine that night, you're standing in a field, it's 3 a.m., the sky is black, the stars are bright, but they don't help. You hear frogs croaking in the distance, crickets chirping, the wind rustling through young corn. You're tired, you're cold, you're holding a phone. Your mom's voice is in your ear, she's telling you to stay put. But you think you see headlights, you think help is coming, so you walk. The ground gets softer, your shoes sink a little. Then you hear it water, not loud, just a quiet trickle. You turn your head, but it's too dark to see. You take one more step, and your foot finds nothing, just air, then cold, shocking water. You gasp, you drop the phone, you try to shout, but the sound gets lost in the wind. Your arms flail, your legs kick. But the mud at the bottom holds you down. You go under, once, twice. The third time you don't come up, and the night swallows you whole. The phone line went dead at 3:30 a.m., but Brandon's parents didn't know that was the end. They kept believing, for days, for months, for years. Even now, more than 17 years later, Annette says she still listens for his car in the driveway. She still sets an extra plate at dinner just in case. She talks to him sometimes, when she's alone. She tells him about the news, about the weather, about how much she misses him. She doesn't know if he can hear her, but she hopes he can. Police have searched the river many times since 2008, after heavy rains, after floods. They thought maybe the water would move his body, bring it to the surface, but the river kept it secret. Some say his body is buried deep in the mud, so deep that even machines can't find it. Others say animals took him, or that he wandered farther than anyone thinks. Maybe he made it to a road, maybe someone picked him up, maybe he's alive somewhere with no memory. But Annette and Brian don't believe that. They know what that final splash meant. They know he's gone. They just want to bring him home, to give him a proper goodbye, to lay him to rest. Until then they live with a hole in their hearts, a silence no words can fill. Think about your own child or your brother or your best friend. Imagine they call you at night, scared, lost, saying, "I need you." And you try your hardest, you drive for hours, you follow every word they say, but you never reach them, and their voice, the last thing you ever hear from them, ends with a gasp and then nothing. Forever, there are no easy answers in Brandon Swanson's story, no clear villain to blame, no smoking gun, just a young man, a dark road, a wrong turn, a cold river, and a phone call that ended too soon. His case remains open, his name is still on missing persons lists. His photo is still shared online, because somewhere in that quiet Minnesota countryside the truth is still waiting, buried in mud, hidden in water, or lost in the wind. If you ever drive through western Minnesota and you see a water tower glowing in the distance, think of Brandon. If you hear water trickling in the dark, think of him. If you see an old green Pontiac in a ditch, think of him. He was just a boy trying to get home. He called for help, and no one could reach him in time. The night took him, the river took him, time has passed, but his parents still wait, and we remember, because someone has to keep saying his name. Brandon Swanson, so he doesn't disappear twice. What do you think happened that night? Do you think he slipped? Do you think he got confused? Do you think he's still out there, somewhere? Or do you believe the river has held him all this time? The land doesn't speak, the water doesn't tell secrets, but if you listen closely. On a very quiet night, you might hear a whisper, a single word, "Mom," and then silence again.